I just hit a lick and I know you feeling some way. Let's not waste any time and get right to the shits. This new Nav album, this album gave me a fat headache. Okay, it's fat. Now, Nav is an artist that's been making music for quite some time now, who I was really more so formally introduced to his Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight debut on Travis Scott's Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight. I was put on to Nav through the world of mainstream hip-hop and introduced to him through Biebs in the Trap Sing McKnight. Wasn't the biggest fan of his feature, but I thought he had an interesting vocal pattern, reminded me a bit of Speaker Knockers. Now, a lot of people hate when I say that, but Speaker Knockers was Speaker Knockers. He was a legend, okay? I love Speaker Knockers. Had a more interesting melody. He had a more interesting story. I felt a little bit more connected to the character. I just liked his aesthetic a lot more. But my introduction to Nav via Travis Scott led me to check out his self-titled mixtape that dropped not long after. I think it was the next year. While I wasn't completely satisfied with a lot of the flows that Nav was exploring on that tape, I was still generally satisfied with his overall sound. I thought he had a decent ear for production, and I still feel that way. However, there was this reoccurring theme of him making money and being a brown boy, but I didn't pay too much attention to it as it was one of the first few mixtapes that I'd heard from Nav at that point. I didn't really have much to go off of, so I really didn't have much to be annoyed by. But then we got the next thing, which was Perfect Timing, that came out, I believe, summer of 2017, and that let me know exactly where Nav could go wrong. And I think the most surprising part about that tape was me finding out that out of all the petty little bullshit subject matter that he was subjecting the audience to throughout the listening process, I found out that the dude was 27 years old. Then the next thing we got from Nav was Reckless, which was a bit of a different tone for Nav. I thought the theme of it was pretty interesting. I thought he could explain himself from the perspective of a guy that's emotionless because he's so numb to what he's been doing recently, living a reckless, fast life. He's not really paying attention to his core, to his soul. But majority of the tracks on that album ended up being much of the same things that we found on his previous mixtapes. Really predictable, atmospheric, spacey production, which again, I'm a fan of, but accompanied with an artist that can carry it. Then he went on to drop an EP, which came a week before this new album, which in hindsight could have literally just been bonus tracks for the album. In all honesty, I think I would have preferred the best tracks from this album be made into an EP and we got rid of the rest of the album. Oh wait, there were no best tracks. This album is bloated. If you've heard Nav from the year 2015 up till now, you would see this album is unnecessary. This album is repetitive. And the only bad habit that I see Nav has on this project is his inability to install a new firmware update for his voice, because I swear as the thing goes on, he gets more and more robotic. Intro track features a ton of auto-tune, which doesn't make Nav sound better, it just makes him seem like he's glitching in and out because his voice has no emotion to it, so it's not a real good use of the feature in the first place. I think the most effort Nav puts into his voice is upping and lowering the pitch of it so that he can match the intensity of the beat. This leaves Nav without a tone, this leaves him without a vocal inflection, it leaves him without any energy. The first really refreshing piece of music that we get on this project honestly comes from Meek Mill, who, excluding his thumb in her butt line, is actually a pretty good feature. But then Nav gets on the hook and what the fuck? The first and last good feature is Meek Mill. The next feature we get is from the Weeknd, which is pretty okay. I think his voice is pretty nice up until we get into this little auto-tune break in between it. But his verse, I put more effort into taking a shit. On the track Hold Your Breath, I swear Gunna and Nav are having a contest to see who can put you to sleep the fastest. Young Thug ups the ante beyond anything he's ever done in his career. If you thought it was weird him wearing a dress, if you thought it was strange him saying that he would make this new formula out of women's juices on beautiful thugger girls, this tops the cake because now he's going to incest bars. Yes, Young Thug wants to sleep with his aunt. Then Nav has the audacity to ask his mom why she's crying. Probably because her son's a fucking robot. And I'm being dead honest with you. That is the extent of the entertainment on this project, is figuring out why the features are put where they are and why Nav decided that on top of an already dead delivery, he needed auto-tune. The content of this album is nothing different than what Nav has already delivered, so if you're a fan of him, you'll probably enjoy this. But if you're not, Stay back. Nav on this project describes himself like Rocky Balboa, but without all the context of Rocky. Imagine seeing Floyd Mayweather in an interview talking about all the fights that he had without context of his entire career and having seen none of his fights. Him just talking to the guy interviewing him like, yeah, I did that. Yep, I did this. Yep, I beat him. Yep, I got 250 million for that fight. That is the exact thing that Nav is doing, but the thing that makes this album so uninteresting is the fact that it lacks any kind of relation or context to his actual life or how he got to the position that he's currently bragging about. I don't have a problem with being braggadocious and delivering these bars that don't really mean anything, because that's a good amount of what hip-hop is today. But if you're not gonna have any context to what it is that you're saying, at least say it in a way that's somewhat animated or interesting or kind of flamboyant. Nav is legit in the ground, 6 feet under. Is this dude still alive? This is really up to your taste to describe or figure out whether you like or dislike Nav's music. Because chances are, if you like it, you've always liked it, and if you don't, you never have. Nav, bad habits. Nah.